you to always be late
A little
to
late,
meetings,
maybe,
then like,
or like run a little long.
yeah.
I do that in my car, so my car is just a couple minutes fast, which is weird because I'm not late for things. That is
Yeah.
not a tendency of mine.
Yeah.
But I don't know why you're like shipping in time so that you guys know. I think it's because Rabbi Molly isn't late for things morning, and I'm worried that she'll be like, oh God, we're late.
Yeah.
Gonna mute.
And we'll just start sending and they'll know that this is coming.
Well, already one is here.
Oh my goodness,
Hey,
thank
great.
goodness.
Look at this.
We are running. It's just on the logo, so that people who came in at 6 weren't going to.
Nice, we have smaller strips today.
Yeah. Nice. These things. Just feel a little better.
You want me to start with people that come in the way?
Yeah. Grace Elizabeth, how would you feel about after you do the board welcome, hanging around to do candles? Cool. I'm gonna light the baby candle now. I feel like the baby candle is actually the biggest problem. What evening was it? Someone came in and lit it and then blew it out so that it would be like pre-lit but not actually lit. And I was like, no, 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 just leave it. Just let it go. It can burn for 15 minutes and then we don't have to all sit here and watch someone go, I don't know what it is about people's eyeballs on my hands, but they start shaking. How am I doing? I'm doing really well. The last month has been super, super nice because it's pretty much exactly a month that HUC's been off. I've had some assignments and I've had like one class but not really doing a lot for it, which has been nice because I did start other work in the meantime and then I holiday, so like it has felt very vacation-y in a way. I'm doing good. Monday, yeah. 8 in the morning, 8:30 in the morning. It's actually, so because I'm an early riser, I don't mind being on an East Coast time, but it is more or less an East Coast schedule. But the good news is I'm done with any class by like 11:30. So that's easy. Yeah. The Thursday morning, I think it's 10 a.m. for them or something, but they have a 7 a.m. tefillah. I'm like, oh, this is very much the first words out of my mouth. Okay, Monday, honey, all right. It is not. It is optional. So what is mandatory, at least for my cohort this semester, is we have a worship lab that requires a Shabbat attendance and a non-Shabbat attendance a week that you're reflecting on and journaling about or whatever, but it could be like, I've done 15-minute little Kaddish minions, I've done ABC spin, I've done all sorts of stuff to just sort of get variety. Which is neat. Oh
on low, you know?
If you don't know the words for Hine Matov and you want to join in with us, they are on page 10. Hine Matov manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine Matov manayim, shevet achyot gam yachad. Hine Matov, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine Matov, shevet achim gam yachad. Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Shabbat shalom.
I would love to invite up Grace Elizabeth to give our board welcome on behalf of the board, which makes up half of our congregation right now.
That's great. Hello, my name is Grace Elizabeth D., and on behalf of Temple B'nai Torah and your board of directors, it is my privilege to welcome you to Shabbat tonight. Friendly reminder, if you haven't gotten a phone call yet or an email, annual campaign is going on right now, and if you donate between now and the end of the month, you'll be entered for a fun Shabbat raffle, gift basket raffle. Anyway, Shabbat shalom.
Wow, I didn't even know about that. What a fun little thing. Do you have any other words of welcome you want to add before we light our candles? Okay.
Off mute back here. Oh dear. Oh dear.
Should be good.
Yeah, well, I had muted myself. How about that? Oh, now you can hear me. Okay, Shabbat Shalom. Well, I think two important pieces about tonight. One, tonight is the first of three learners minyanim, which means we're going to spend a little more time on one section of the service so that we can dive a little bit deeper into the words that we're maybe accustomed to saying, but don't always necessarily know all that we're saying or all the choreography or why we say it or what the history is. So tonight, we're focusing actually on the very end of the service, in particular the Amidah, and then the concluding prayers after the Amidah. So we'll have Aleinu and we'll have the Mourner's Kaddish. And I think it's a really nice time of year to do that because, Maya, what did we just read about in the Torah? Do you remember?
The 7 days of creation.
The 7 days of creation. We are starting the Torah anew and reading Bereshit in the beginning. And I think it's a really nice invitation that as we restart the Torah, we come back to these same words. Welcome, everyone. We come back to these same words year over year. And the words don't change, but we likely have changed in some ways.
Hopefully.
Hopefully. You're right, really hopefully. We've done some work. I'm sure some things are different in our lives than they were last year. And so it's a great time to come back to the words, to review, to learn something new. And I think really this newness is a time of a lot of potential. And so we get to use that in our tefillah tonight.
Absolutely. Grace Elizabeth, would you come up and help us with our candle blessing? I'm so sorry to make you walk so far. No. As Grace Elizabeth makes their way up there, we can turn to page 2 for the candle blessing. As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us, As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we in our own day be among those who kindle light. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner Shel Shabbat. Thank you, Grace Elizabeth. And we are going to next raise our Kiddush cup, our symbol of joy. And before we recite Kiddush, does anybody have simchas they want to share? Special occasions? Sally first. You met your friend Anita today. How about you? Good to see you all. Anita, what's yours? Happy birthday to Anita, and we're so glad that you're with us tonight. Simcha from Harmony? Good things that make us really happy that happened this week. Please.
Today counts as this week?
Yeah. Whoa, dentist and then candy, what a good combination. Also, don't know that I've ever heard going to the dentist described as a simcha before, so I love that.
I think it was the toy that you got after.
Sure. The dentist was part of the simcha. Any others? Please.
My parents were in town visiting to celebrate Maya's birthday.
You have a birthday? Well, that's a simcha. Oh, okay. Okay, well, that's not.
I got sick for it.
Yeah, yeah.
Simcha from last week, I flew to Great Falls, Montana last Monday, and I stayed through Wednesday for a wellness conference.
Ooh,
Really great, really great.
that's delightful. I'm sorry, did I cut off your simcha? Just the grandparents were in town? Yes, that is a simcha. Absolutely. Any others before we? All right, page 5 for the Kiddush blessing, if you want to join me. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho Be'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu Zikaron lema'aseh v'reshit Ki hu yom techila lemikra'e kodesh Zecher letziat Mitzrayim Ki vanu v'acharta Ve'otanu kidashta mikol hamim Ve'shabbat kodshecha be'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh HaShabbat. L'chaim.
L'chaim.
Oh, so sweet. So sweet is Shabbat.
Well, maybe before we move any farther, can I just introduce myself to everybody? I have spent some time here at Temple B'nai Torah, but I'm a guest rabbi tonight. I'm Rabbi Avi Fine, joined here by my assistant Maya Fine. I work actually at the Jewish Day School right over there as the rabbi of the school, and since I don't have a weekend job, it allows me to help fill in sometimes, so it's really fun to be invited back here. I was here a little bit last year, and to get to be with you as we bring in Shabbat.
And we are very grateful for your presence and your teaching. If you are just tuning in or just joined us tonight, we are doing a learner's Shabbat, so we will be a little lighter on the first half of the service and then really getting into a lot of meaty details in the Amidah.
Good for vegetarians too, though.
Yes, yeah. The salient details,
yeah.
the nutritive details of all sorts. We are going to keep going with Lecha Dodi. You can turn to page 20, and we will be singing verses 1, 2, 5, and 9. When we get to verse 9, folks are invited to rise as able, and we literally greet the Shabbat bride as part of our Kabbalat Shabbat. So, page 20. Lecha dodi likrat kala yalalai 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 Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala yalalai 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 Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibor echad Hishmi'anu el ha'meyuchad Adonai echad u'shmo echad L'shemo tiferet ve'letila la 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 Lecha dodi likrat kala yalalai 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 Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala yalalai 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 Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha Ki mekor ha'beracha Merosh mikedem nesucha Sof ma'aseh b'machshava tchila Lecha dodi likrat kala yalalai 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 Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala yalalai 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 Pnei Shabbat nekabela.
Number 5.
Hitoreri, hitoreri, kiva orech, kumi ori, uri, uri, shir daberi, kevod Adonai, alayich nigla la 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 lecha dodi likrat kala yalalai 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 Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala yalalai 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 Pnei Shabbat nekabela.
Number 9.
Boi v'shalom ateret bala Gam besimcha uvetzola Toch emune am segula Boi chala la 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 Lecha dodi likrat kala yalalai 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 Pnei Shabbat nekabela. We are going to remain standing and turn to page 28 for 28, thank you, for the Baruch, our official call to worship. Yai lai lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai. Barechu et Adonai HaMevorach Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed. You may may be seated. In keeping, again, with the learner's minyan and our focus on the Amidah, we have blitzed right through Kabbalat Shabbat and are into Shema Uvirotecha, Shema and her blessings. There will be, in about 3 months and 6 months, other learners minyanim where we learn about those more intentionally. But for now, we are going to take a moment and get quiet and prepare ourselves for Shema.
We're on page 34.
Page 34 and 35 for Shema, and then we'll continue right on to 36. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed. 36. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol meodecha. Ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת. Turning to page 42, thank you, sorry. Turning to page 42, we find the words for Hashkivenu, our prayer, asking for a Sukkot. We are skipping some of the elements of Shema Uvirotecha to get to Amidah quicker. Thank you for checking very much.
It's good to know how well you know.
I know. That was a pop
order.
quiz to make sure that you knew that Micha Mocha technically often comes next. And for time, Hashkivenu, page 42. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom v'hamidenu malkeinu lechaim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom v'hamidenu shomreinu lechaim. Ufros aleinu Sukkot shlomecha uchayet shalom me'ata ve'ad olam. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom v'hamidenu shomreinu lechaim. At the bottom, Baruch Atah Adonai HaPores Sukkot Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael
Ve'al Yerushalayim.
Yerushalayim. Okay, and now we get to the main event that we've been talking about our whole evening, which is we begin the Amidah. So we're on page 46 in our Sidurim. In this portion, I'm going to do just a little bit more explanation than we're probably used to. That's part of what makes this a learner's minion. So it's going to feel a little different, but I'm hoping to give us all just a little more background on some of these prayers so we can better engage with them in the future. This is actually a great piece. If you have with you, or if you'd like to grab, on that chair right there, we compiled a bunch of resources about the Amidah that come from one particular book. But if you turn to page 2 in this packet, you will see a layout of the structure of the Amidah. And a few things to say already about the structure. The Amidah has many names. So one of it is Amidah, which means standing prayer. So in a moment, but not yet, we will get up, those of us who are able to, and rise, which is a way of demonstrating with our bodies how important this prayer, really these prayers are. That's one of the names of it. It's also known as Ha-Tfilah, which means the prayer. Again, really showing us, telling us that this is the central piece of our service. When we don't have a Torah service like on a Shabbat morning, the Amidah is the height of the service. If we were climbing that mountain, everything is warm up, we reach the first plateau, the Amidah, we're at the peak. And it's called the Shmona Esrei. For those who speak Hebrew, that means the 18, because on a not Shabbat, on a weekday that's also not a holiday, there are 18 prayers in the Amidah, but actually there are 19 prayers in the Amidah. One was added after the rabbis already named it the Shmona Esrei, but the name 18 stuck, even though it's actually not. It's very Jewish, but it's actually 19 prayers. But then as you see here on the piece of paper, on Shabbat, we don't say all of the 19 prayers because Shabbat is a day where we're supposed to imagine that we have everything we need. Whether or not that happens to be true in our lives, we make it true on Shabbat, and so we don't ask for things on Shabbat. And many of these intermediate prayers are about asking God to make things happen, to bring things to us. We don't do that on Shabbat, but we do add Kiddushat Hayom, the sanctity of the day. So we subtract many of them, we add one, and that math leads us with 7 on Shabbat. So I said one of the types of prayer is asking for things, petitionary. There are other types of prayers too, both in general and we see in the Amidah. So there are prayers of thanksgiving, prayers of gratitude, of thanks. There are prayers of apology. We just recently went through this big holiday where we spent a lot of the whole day apologizing. That we have here too. And then there are these prayers of praise, where we are describing, extolling the amazing qualities of God. Or as someone I know likes to call it, our prayers are, there are thanks prayers, there are oops prayers, there are wow prayers, expressing gratitude, there are gimme prayers, and there are sorry prayers. Different ways to think about it. And these, like many of our prayers, are very old. Likely, a lot of the pieces of the Amidah were composed in the time of the Second Temple, which is destroyed in 70 CE, which means they were composed at least a little bit before then. So they even predate the Mishnah, which is codified around 200 CE, which is sort of the first real compendium of Jewish thinking and law. So they're old, and there are also some additions and changes that we see. And then the piece of choreography to know, that first piece, I love this 0 on here. So before we even get into the Amidah, we have these words, Adonai Sifatai Tiftach, asking for God to help the right words come out of our mouths. Because how often do you have something in your head, and then you go to put it out in the world, and it just doesn't come out the way you wanted it to, and then someone receives it, and then you have to deal with what happens there. So we want to help getting the right words out, and as we do that, you take 3 steps back when you say those words, and then you take 3 steps forward. And one interpretation here is like it's really a way of physically entering into that prayer space. We have a rather embodied tradition, meaning like we use our bodies a lot, though we don't always lean into all of those pieces these days. Then that first prayer, the avot, is when you, in the beginning, you bow to your knees, and then you go like, straight down like that, both at the beginning and then at the end. The challenge is the tune is the same, but actually for the next prayer, the givorot, the second piece, you do not actually bow at the end of that one, even though it sounds really similar.
Yeah, it's doing the same thing. It's saying Baruch Atah Adonai at the same time.
Right.
But we don't.
But you don't bow. When you do bow is when we get to the modim, hoda'ah, we'll come to later, which is a prayer of thanks.
Got a question.
Oh, great, a question, Sally.
Thank you, by the way, for demonstrating that questions are okay.
Or comments. We don't know what's going to happen. Though we invite people to pray silently. I'm not counting what you're doing when you pray silently, so it's possible.
I just wanted to point it out, because if someone comes on a Shabbat morning, on a weekday morning,
Well, we're
you're
not going to
saying
have any prayer service.
we
on
don't
weekday
hold a
morning.
weekday minyan when you would be doing it. That is true. Yes. What people call it, that there's probably a range there. Yes. Great. So if we're on page 46 here, those words, Adonai sifatai tiftach, as you say the beginning, you're taking the steps back, and then you just make sure by the end of saying that piece, you're forward. Yeah, it's like a way of entering in to the prayer. I feel. I don't know how others feel about it. But other questions? That was great. I love that you started this. Questions, comments, thoughts? So what we're going to do is we'll, as we normally do, I imagine, we'll stand up, we'll pray these first 3, and whereas normally we might, after that, move into a silent prayer, I'm actually going to have us read through the words of these middle blessings on Shabbat. Okay? Sound good?
Sounds good.
All right. So I'll invite you to rise in spirit, in body, whatever is going to help you offer these words on page 46.
Adonai. Ananana svatai tiftach. Ananana ufi agid. Ufi agid tehilatecha. Baruch atah Adonai.
Page 48.
Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Vekonei Hakol, Vezocher Chasdevot V'imahot, Umevi Gula Livnei V'neihem, Leman Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer U'Mashiach U'Magin, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, Bezrat Sarah. Before we turn to the next one, remember that we are past Sukkot, so we are now doing the winter insertion. So page 50.
Well, as long as you stop the list, can I share a little bit more too? So that avot piece, I think, is a great demonstration of the prayers of praise. Like it's really talking about these attributes of God, reminding God of this connection we have. Remember, God, you're that God who was the God of Abraham and Sarah. Me too. I'm a part of that line of people. You had this great relationship. So think about them when you're hearing my prayer. In some ways, it's like you're buttering God up. Maybe that's being a little too flippant about it. But if you had something really important you were going to ask from someone important in your life, whether it's someone who maybe your boss or maybe a parent, you could imagine, you want to tell them, oh, Mom, you are just the best. You are so kind. You make the tastiest sandwiches. You have always treated me so well. Before you say, I'd really love this new bike. Do you think you could help me acquire the new bike? So a vote, I think, is doing a piece of that. It's reminding God of this connection. And then we get to the Givorot, where we're still talking about, if you look at the English if you want, all these amazing qualities, these things God does. You sustain life. You give life. You heal the sick. You support the fallen. You have all these amazing, amazing qualities. And then I love this flip from praying for dew in the summertime to praying for rain in the wintertime, which is not actually about what happens here in the Northwest, where we thankfully most of the time get enough rain, but is thinking about the land of Israel, which rain is a life or death situation over there, especially for an agrarian society that was depending on the crops that they were able to grow. And the rabbis thought it didn't make sense to pray for something that you knew wouldn't come true. So to pray for rain in the middle of the summer in Jerusalem, that prayer wasn't going to be answered. And that would, in fact, make people maybe think prayer is less effective. So we have this flip during the year, and it's always exciting, at least for those of us who lead, to get to change things up a little bit. And now we'll go to page 50 for the Givorot.
אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע, משיב הרוח ומרעיד הגשם, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות הכל. Baruch atah Adonai, mechayei hakol. Page 52. Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, ukdoshim bechol yom yahalelucha selah. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el hakadosh. All right, and we can be seated for now. So even that third one, the Kedusha, if you come back here for a morning service on Shabbat, is a much longer version. So we see that there's one way that prayers sometimes are different, is that the evening version will look a little bit different than the morning version. I imagine next time you do this, and if you talk about Ma'ariv Aravim versus Yotzer Or in the morning, we see that. And then one other thing, as we are going through Givorot, that came to mind, because I'm going to come back to it when we talk about Aleinu. You'll notice there are some words in parentheses. Metim is in parentheses, as opposed to Hakol, which is not in parentheses. And this turns out liturgy, our prayers, and who gets to make the prayer book, sometimes, often contain a bit of a theological, philosophical, ideological bent. And mechaye metim means revive the dead. And there are those who feel that understanding that God revives the dead is a really important Jewish belief. And there are those for whom the idea of God reviving the dead is so supernatural, not going to happen, that why would we put it in our prayer book? So one choice might have been just to leave it out completely. One choice might have been to put it there and not hakol. This siddur, every siddur makes choices, leaves in the meitim piece as an option, but then has hakol as the default. So often there are choices made behind the scenes that we don't even see when we're looking at our siddur. I had a professor who liked saying meitim, not because that was his theology, but because it actually rhymes better. And his understanding, he is both a poet and a scholar of poetry, is that it's all metaphor anyway, so why not keep it if the language flows a little bit better? Sally? Yeah. Yes. All Orthodox shuls, probably all conservative maybe. I don't remember the most recent siddur. Yeah, so almost exclusively, if you're in a Reform context, it would say hakol. Exclusively in an Orthodox context, it would say meitim. I think in most conservative contexts, it's meitim, but they might give you a little option as well. Yeah, well, you'd have to talk to Rabbi Buchdahl about that. Yeah, meitim means dead. Hakol is everything.
So mechaye hakol is like gives life to everything versus mechaye meitim gives life to the dead.
Mm-hmm.
So that is what we're saying. We're saying to everything as opposed to specifically to the dead.
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm.
I love that, and if you look, so a beautiful thing about this prayer book is it has on the, I'm so bad at, right-hand side, it has the typical, like, general prayers, and then on the left-hand side, there's often sort of more metaphorical things, and the third line in this one says, who quickens those who have forgotten how to live, which I think is a really beautiful way of talking to that same idea.
But it is a good point that for the rabbis who composed this, if we're talking about it being composed 2,000 years ago, the death of body and death of spirit were rather aligned, one might imagine. I mean, the idea is that the soul was actually eternal and would return to God, is at least one of the ideas. And we have a different reality now. Yeah.
And yet the same, absolutely.
And there is one of the messianic ideas in Judaism is that the dead, when the Messiah comes, those who have died are revived and everyone goes back to the temple in Jerusalem, basically, which is why the real estate right outside of the walls of Jerusalem contains a lot of cemeteries, and the Mount of Olives, for example, is the closest place you can be buried, right outside of Jerusalem, so that you have the shortest distance to travel.
Be ready for the
Once this
action when
comes.
Mashiach comes.
Yeah. So it's interesting, this is sort of a theme. What do you do when that's what's in the Siddur? Do you change the traditional words? And then it's different if you go to an Orthodox shul or if you're here at a Reform shul. Or do you say them even if they don't align with how you understand God or the world? Or how do you signify something about that in here? So that was Givorot and the Kedusha, God's holiness. So these are all prayers of praise, these first three. And then let's go to page 54. So this is Kedushat Hayom, this special edition for Shabbat. And if you were here on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, here or anywhere else in synagogue, there are other editions at this very point in the Amidah on those days, because that similarly is a sanctification of the day. They're just different days. So there are different prayers and blessings there. Let us, and then the other piece I'll say, and then we'll read it. The second paragraph in the Hebrew, in the English, it's all kind of lumped in. Starts with Vayachulu hashamayim v'ha'aretz. This actually is taken right out of our Torah portion this week, Genesis 2, starting with verse 1. And for folks who say the longer Kiddush on a Friday night, you begin with these very sentences. So it's a way of both bringing in the Torah, and because they are about Shabbat happening in creation, God resting, we bring it right here into the sanctification of this day of Shabbat. So I'll just read these, and you are invited to follow along. You set aside the seventh day for your name, the pinnacle of creation, and you blessed it above all other days, more sacred than all festival times. So it is written in your Torah, the heaven, and here's the quote from Genesis, the heaven and earth were finished in all their array. On the seventh day, God had completed the work that had been done, ceasing then on the seventh day from all the work that God had done. Then God blessed the seventh day and made it holy, and ceased from all the creative work that God had chosen to do. At the bottom, our God and God of our ancestors, be pleased with our rest. Sanctify us with your mitzvot. Grant us a share in your Torah. Satisfy us with your goodness and gladden us with your salvation. Purify our hearts to serve you in truth. In your gracious love, Adonai, our God, grant as our heritage your holy Shabbat, that Israel, who sanctifies your name, may rest on it. Praise to you, Adonai, who sanctifies Shabbat. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh Shabbat. And what I like about this ending of this blessing, we are ascribing this to God, who sanctifies Shabbat, and also we are invited to do what we can to sanctify Shabbat. We light the candles, we say Kiddush, we enjoy being in community, maybe we eat some special food, and those are all ways that we can add sanctification, holiness to this day. We're going to go to the next page, page 56. Again, a great thing about this Sidur Mishkan Tefillah, if you look on the very margins at the top of the page, either in the Hebrew or in the English, it gives you the structure of the Amidah and the prayers in it, and then the bold tells you which one we're on. So if we just finished Kedushat Hayom, now we're on to Avodah, which means in modern Hebrew, work, but in this case, it means worship. Refers to what was before the Avodah in the ancient temple, which was the bringing of sacrifices. So I'll read these for us. Find favor, Adonai, our God, with your people Israel, and accept their prayer in love. May the worship of your people Israel always be acceptable. God, who is near to all who call, turn lovingly to your servants. Pour out your spirit upon us. And then we go to the bottom of the page, because here's an insert for particular holidays. Rosh Chodesh, the first of the month, Pesach and Sukkot, but we can skip that today. Let our eyes behold your loving return to Zion. Blessed are you, Adonai, whose presence returned to Zion. Baruch atah Adonai hamachzir shchinto letzion. And then on the facing page, it continues, ever-present one, may we, your people Israel, be worthy in our deeds and our prayer. Wherever we live, wherever we seek you, in this land and Zion restored in all lands, you are our God, whom alone we serve in reverence. Baruch atah Adonai, she'otcha levadcha b'yirah na'avod. So that's the avodah piece. And then we come to modim, which technically here is the other time you would bow in the Amidah, is as you begin modim, and then as you finish the blessing too. Modim, if anyone knows the prayer mode'ani that we begin our days with, that is the same verb like modim, modeh. Maybe you can hear how they're similar, and it means to acknowledge with thanks, or gratitude, or thanks. So this is, if we're thinking about the different categories of prayer, this is a prayer of thanks. We acknowledge with thanks that you are Adonai, our God, and the God of our ancestors forever. You are the rock of our lives and the shield of our salvation in every generation. Let us thank you and praise you for our lives which are in your hand, for our souls which are in your care, for your miracles that we experience every day, and for your wondrous deeds and favors at every time of day, evening, morning, and noon. O good one, whose mercies never end, O compassionate one, whose kindness never fails, we forever put our hope in you. For all these things, O sovereign, let your name be forever praised and blessed. O God, our Redeemer and Helper, let all who live affirm you and praise your name in truth. Blessed are you, Adonai, your name is goodness, and you are worthy of thanksgiving. Baruch atah Adonai hatov shimcha, ulecha na'eh lehodot. And we'll turn to page 60. This is a piece... Yeah. So a few years ago, Sally read the version from UPB, the old Reform prayer book. I love that. So then on page 60, we come to Shalom being the category, the prayer for peace. And interestingly enough, I know I said, we don't ask for anything on Shabbat. because we imagine the world is perfect as it is, except for shalom. We always ask for peace because we so desperately need peace. And today we were going to sing a little bit to help bring some of that peace.
On page 60 at the top, we find the words for Shalom Rav. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki atahu melech Adon lechol hashalom. Ki atahu melech Adon lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam.
We'll take just a moment here for silent prayer. Again, you could go over some of the words here in the Siddur, or offer the prayers of your heart. In addition to praying for peace on Shabbat and asking for peace, we also ask for health and for healing and for wholeness. The next piece of our service is Mishaberach prayer, which is on page 253. And I'll say, we often call it Mishaberach, which means, may the one who blessed. So it's not a complete statement, and it turns out that's actually a formula that many prayers begin with. So if you look at the top of even the facing page 252, it also starts with Mi Sheberach Avotenu Ve'imotenu. Nothing in that naming Mi Sheberach means exactly it's a prayer for healing. The whole phrase would be Mi Sheberach Lecholim, a prayer for healing. And what's nice here about Mishkan Tefillah, about our Siddur, is at the top of page 253, you would see the more traditional words that you would say for Mishaberach before Debbie Friedman so beautifully put this to music and changed how this looks in every, at least non-Orthodox synagogue. So you still have those traditional words, though we often offer Debbie's words. And sometimes, instead of these words, El Na Refana La, are offered too, and those are words that come out of the book of Numbers, words that Moses says to God, and then we put them to music and to feeling as well. Tonight we're going to stick with
The classic.
Debbie, the classic.
As a community, this Shabbat, we are thinking of Jacqueline Tara Smith, Deborah Rose, Eileen Kreisman, Ronnie Haber, Ellen Gottlieb, Vanessa Bianco, Paul McCready, Glenn Letts, Carl Wilhite, Cindy Balin, Patty Newby, Joe Giordano, Ron Louie, Sally Wildeson, Marnie Good, Sylvia Angel, Marion Laird, Sheldon Robert, Lisa Bush, Patricia Barber, Kyle Asadorian, Paul Norris, Stephen Thrasher, Laura Halper, Bob Cook, Tora Knapp, Jason Getler, Nina Schechter, Amanda Young, Wyatt Curcio-Launer, Tom Anderson, Mary Wilhite, Stephen Shookman, Jennifer Stock, Roger Phelps, Martin Goldstein, and Molly Launer. If there are other names, please share them now. Amanda Simantov. We think of them all as we join together. Mishebeirach Avotenu Mekor HaBracha Limotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mishebeirach imotenu mekor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
We wish all of us a refuah shlema, a healing that leads to wholeness.
Amen.
Next, we'll come to Aleinu. And before we do, I'm going to give a little bit of an extended introduction to Aleinu in lieu of a drash, or in form of a drash. How about that? We come to Aleinu, which is our first sign that our prayer service is concluding. It's meant to signal that, all right, we've made it through the Amidah, we've offered Mishaberach, we're almost at the end. And that raises a question for me, which is, how do we want to leave this space? I think as they implemented this, wrote this, the rabbis understand a bit of recency bias, that what you have heard most recently will probably stick most with you as you leave a space. And so, if that's the case, what does Aleinu then tell us we should be taking with us to go forward? And then I think I would ask us all that same question too, regardless of the words of Aleinu, after this service or after any service, you could imagine that this is your cue to think about, okay, I've been here, I've been singing, I read these words, I heard what the rabbi said, I met a new person, but what do I want if I'm here for an hour a week, maybe 3 hours a week? What do I want to take from this space and bring back to the rest of my days and weeks? And I think that's what Aleinu is supposed to get us to start thinking about. Because that word, Aleinu, means it's on us. The whole phrase, I had a professor who said, you can't call it Aleinu, you have to call it Aleinu l'shabeach. L'shabeach means to praise. So she would say we have to call this prayer, it's up to us to pray. And I want to bring, this is not what we're going to offer tonight, but one alternative version that I have come to learn and enjoy at Camp Kalsman, and this is written by Cantor Ellen Dreskin and Dan Nichols. Many of our prayers Dan has written beautiful versions of. And I'm going to read just a piece of what their version is. It's up to us to call ourselves to task, to sing what's good and true, to bring about redemption. It's what we were freed to do. For what's the point of being here if we're not moved to change our ways? Aleinu l'shabeach, it's time to live our praise. We are carrying the stories of the ones who came before. What stories will be told of us when we are here no more? We commit ourselves to action, it brings meaning to our days. Aleinu l'shabeach, it's time to live our praise. It's up to us to own the vision, or an answer to a call. It's up to us to live the words we speak for the benefit of all. It's up to us to bow deeply, there's a broken world to raise. Aleinu l'shabeach, it's time to live our praise. So I think they beautifully sum up that the point of this is to take it from here and bring it. Okay, and that's one thing Aleinu brings up for me. And the second piece, and this is why I made sure to stop in Givorot, is what do we do when our prayers say things that we don't necessarily agree with. Now, I know here at TBT, when you offer Aleinu, I mean, just look at the Siddur. There are multiple options here. We're on page 282 and 283. You have 3 different versions for how you might begin Aleinu, which should signify that there must be something happening here that we're not sure what to do with. So I know at TBT, we offer the piece at the top of page 283. Other places I've offered the bottom of page 282. And what the difference is in these 3 versions, Aleinu references our chosenness as the Jewish people. So let's see, on the bottom of page 282, the 3rd line down, Shelo asanu ki goyei haratzot, velo samanu ke mishpechot ha'adama, shelo sam chalkenu kahem, vegor aleinu kechol hamanam. So we are saying that, the translation is nice here, that God set us apart from other families of the earth, giving us a destiny unique among the nations. But you could read that says, God didn't make us like the other nations, like the other people who live on the land, that gave us a different destiny from everyone else. And we, modern Jews, especially in the non-Orthodox context, sometimes don't feel great about this idea of chosenness and us being different from the people around us. And so we have this other version that we say here at TBT, which says, Shehu sam chalkenu leyachad et shemo. So instead of God created us separately, this says we're all in this together and we have a similar destiny. That's a pretty different read, right? So this raises the question of what do you do when you have something that maybe doesn't quite work for you? Do you get rid of it? Do you keep it and reinterpret it? Do you change it? Or here, maybe do you give people options? So either depending on the day or depending on the community, they can choose the piece that's going to feel right for them. And as if that's not enough, we don't even see this part in the Reform Siddur, but if you were reading this in an Orthodox Siddur, there's already a line that's been removed that we don't have anywhere in here, which says that the other nations bow down to emptiness. So I think we all here could imagine why that's no longer in our Siddur, and yet that is the traditional words that were in here that at various times in history were removed or changed. As I was doing some research, I was reading that at one point it was outlawed by the communities in which the Jews lived, and so they would leave that part of the Siddur blank, and people either could physically on their own write in those words, or they would know what to say, but no one could point to it as evidence because it wasn't there written down. And there was also a practice where you would spit on the ground when you would say that as well, which just sounds a little gross, I have to say.
You don't spit in your prayer spaces?
Did you not notice the puddle over here? Yeah, sorry about that.
Little splash zone in the front row.
The
That's why
carpet
nobody
is
sits
rough.
there.
Yeah. So I think it's interesting. What do we do with this prayer that both is supposed to remind us what we're doing as we leave this space and has things in it that traditionally, at least, don't align with our values? I don't have an answer for us, but I think it's something for us to consider. Yes, David.
Are there any prayers that say that we're a light upon the light unto the nations?
So are there any prayers that say we are a light unto the nations? There certainly is that idea Jewishly. Off the top of my head, I do not know, but I could do a little research and get back to you. Does that feel different when you frame it maybe more in a positive? Is that what you're saying? Yeah. And I think there is a way to reinterpret this that says, like, yeah, every people, every faith, religion, group has their mission in the world, and those are going to be a little bit different. That's what it means to be different people and different groups. And just because we have our chosenness for this task doesn't mean that that group isn't chosen for a different task. But we don't always read it that way. And the other just a couple pieces of background, and then we'll get into actually saying the words. This is instituted in the 3rd century, so a long time ago. It starts in the Rosh Hashanah service, and then later gets added to be a part of our daily services in the 12th, at least by the 12th century, if not a little bit earlier. And then the choreography here is the words Ve'anachnu korim umishtachavim. It's like the beginning of the Avot. Korim, we bend the knees. Mishtachavim, we bow down, and then we're back up by that next piece there. Okay, I think we're there. Aleinu also, we generally don't do the whole piece of Aleinu. We do a selection of the Aleinu. We'll continue with that tonight, but know that there is on page 284 another paragraph, another 2 paragraphs actually. Then on page 286 there's more, and we just do like that little bit on 286, but certainly in the interest of time too. So we're going to start on page 283, and then we're going to move to page 287, which is the same as the bottom of page 286. I'm going to invite us
it
to
sure is. Yeah.
invite us to rise in body or in spirit.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, l'teit gerula le'yotzer b'reshit, shehu samchel kenu le'ached et shmo, ve'gor aleinu le'hamlich malchuto, v'anachnu korim, umishtachavim umodim, lifnei melech malchei hamlachim, hakadosh baruch hu. V'ne'emar, v'haya Adonai, l'melech al kol ha'aretz, bayom hahu, yeh Adonai echad, u'shemo echad.
In a moment, we'll move into our Kaddish Yatom, our Mourner's Kaddish. In terms of introduction, yeah, you can be seated. I'll try to keep it brief, but you know us rabbis, which is on page 294. Mourner's Kaddish says nothing about death. It praises God. It is written not in Hebrew, but in Aramaic, which is a similar language to Hebrew, and certainly uses the same letters, but is a little bit different. And this prayer itself comes out of a Beit Midrash, a house of study, as opposed to from a place of prayer. And it was said in honor of when your teacher, your rabbi, had died, then you would say this in honor of them. So in that way, it became associated with death. And then only later, actually after the Crusades, does this get added to the daily services as a prayer of memory after death. Traditionally, only a mourner would say these words, and different communities, especially in the non-Orthodox world, have adopted different practices. So often, the whole community might rise as a way of supporting those mourners, or for saying Kaddish for those who don't have anyone to say Kaddish for them. And I think there's something nice to every practice. There's something nice that the people who are in mourning have that opportunity, and we all get to see who that is, so we know who we need to support. That's our job when we see someone saying Kaddish. And there's something about physically standing up and saying it with people as well. So let's turn to page 294. Thank you, Liz.
This,
Yeah. Yes. Yes, there, right, we say, because if you look at the translation, exalted and hallowed be God's great name. So you might say,
Amen.
yeah, I agree. Great. It's a great question, like why there, Dafka, do we have the Amen and not in other parts and other prayers? But you're right, that is a piece of it. And then there's the couple other lines that people join in. There's a, where
there's
are
a
we?
couple amens, and then in the very middle, there's a brichu.
Yeah, right, there's the brichu, thank you. And then we say that whole line right here. Yeah, somewhere in there.
The first Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mivrach,
Right.
about 6
Excellent.
lines down.
Yes, thank you, Liz.
Everybody joins in. And that is, to your point, some of the choreography of the mourners being sort of accompanied by the rest of the
Nice.
congregation to a
Yeah.
certain extent.
Yeah.
This Shabbat, we are mourning the most recent loss of Mitzi Kodesh, congregant and wife of Randy Hyde, Marilyn Ruth Watson, sister of Marcia Dare and sister-in-law of Larry Asher, Carl Seidemann, uncle of Risa Coleman, and David Greenblatt, grandfather of Dan Black. We're also mourning the Yartsites, the anniversary of the death of Robert Falk, Anne Bernstein, Edward Bresker, Philip Burday, Herbert M. Meltzer, Rose Milstein, Jay Charters, Dora Gerson, Harry Ebner, Daniel I. Klein, Zelda Wallman, Lillian Dorfman, Ernest Lorch, Estelle Altabet, Irma Brenner, Adela Brumer, Leonid Dvorsky, Rebecca Kishinevskaya, Florence Kufert, Klaus J.B. Lewin, and Lillian Schiffman. If I've mispronounced a name or you have a name you'd like to add, I invite you to do so now. We invite folks to rise as able in support of our mourners and join us in the ancient words. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shmei Rabbah, be'alma divrach hiruteh v'yamlich malchuteh, b'chayachon u'yomechon uv'chaye dechol beit Yisrael, ba'gala uv'izman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam omei omaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitale v'yithalal shmei dekudasha b'richu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata damiran be'alma v'imru amen Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen Oseh shalom b'imromav Hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen.
Amen.
May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us and to all Israel, to which we say amen,
Amen.
and you may be seated.
We'll conclude in a moment. Thanks, Liz, for
Thank you, Rabbi
leading us
Poppy. It
musically.
was so nice to learn with you tonight.
It was great to be here. Thanks to Grace Elizabeth back there on the stream and representing the board. Thanks for all of you for helping us bring in Shabbat. Thanks to Nestor. Thanks to our security. I think let's go right into Motzi.
Perfect.
And then after Motzi, everyone is invited to join us back behind in the social hall for some more treats.
For some Shabbat oneg, joy of Shabbat.
Yes?
I just want to give two announcements. So this coming Sunday, there's two events going on. The Holocaust Center for Humanity is having a presentation about Anne Frank from 2 to 3 in the afternoon. And there's a rally in downtown Seattle, I don't know the location yet, against a rally against anti-Semitism this Sunday.
Two very important things going on in Seattle this Sunday. Thank you, David, and people can talk to him for information about that during the oneg. All right.
Let's join together.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz b'tehavon. B'tehavon shabbat shalom. Thank you, everybody. Please come grab some challah. Join us for the oneg. Come back 3 months from now for another Learner's Minyan, but also next week for Shabbat.